Welcome, everyone. I'm Terry D. Swain, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Andrew Vassell, the founder and CEO of PNF. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here to talk about you and your company, PNF. Well, let's get down to business. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your story? Who is Andrew Vassell?
I'm thankful for this opportunity, Terry. And so a little bit about myself. I'm a man of God first. My parents raised me in the church. And so, my foundation is, my belief is in Jesus Christ, who's my Lord and Savior. And without him, I wouldn't be here today. So that's, first and foremost. I was born in New York, but raised here in Lawrenceville, Georgia. I'm the oldest of three, so I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And I'm actually the oldest grandchild on both sides of the family. And to some, that might seem like a lot of pressure, but to me, I welcome it. I enjoy being the older cousin and the role model for my brother and sister. I'm also recently married to my lovely wife, Amber Vassell. We got married in September of last year, so we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary. And so that's just a little bit about myself.
So, as a child, what did you want to be?
It's funny. My mom recently showed me this artwork that I did back in 3rd grade, and it had a couple questions on there like, what are your hobbies? What do you want to do when you grow up? And I actually put that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I was just kind of mind blown by that at such a young age, I was fascinated with, owning my own business. And actually, when I got to the 9th grade in high school, I started my own landscaping company. So I started mowing yards in my complex. And then I took it a little bit further, and I had up to 10 customers. And so, I've always just been fascinated with the idea of having my own business.
And what were you like in high school?
Man, that was a while back now. I just turned 30, so. But no, in high school, I was very focused. I had a good role model in my father. He was a very hardworking man, and he instilled that into me at an early age. So I played basketball all 4 years in high school, but I was also very focused on my school, my grades, because my parents, always instilled in me that it was important not only to, excel in my extracurriculars and sports, but to also make sure I took care of business in the classroom. So I was very focused, and I had a good time, but I knew when to be serious.
So, what are your hobbies?
Let's see. Some of my hobbies are I enjoy bowling. I enjoy playing spades. It's one of my favorite things to do. I enjoy traveling. Also, me and my wife, we just recently started a travel business called Cupid Travelers, and so we're going to be catering more towards couples, anniversaries, honeymoons, couples trips. So. Just getting started with that, and reading the Word, man. I'm hungry for the Word. I enjoy reading the Bible, and so those are a few things I like to do.
Do you have a favorite book?
Actually, I do. My favorite book is actually sitting right here. It's called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, excuse me. And in the book, the secret, what the actual secret is it's called the Law of Attraction. And so pretty much what the book talks about is that whatever you think, the thoughts that you think are what you attract into your life. So if you think positive thoughts and you're always optimistic about things, then that's the type of things that you'll attract into your life. But if you're always negative and always down on yourself, then unfortunately, those are the type of things that you'll attract into your life as well. And I honestly think that once you get that paradigm shift and you realize that, the power of your thoughts, man, I mean, you'll be set.
Wow, that's awesome. I believe that, in the direction that you're headed, that would be definitely some useful information.
Yes, sir.
So what book are you reading now?
Let's see, I have another book here. So this one is called The Servant Leader by Ken Blanchard and Phil Hodges. I'm actually the vice president of the National Association of Black Accountants, and so we decided that we would purchase this book for all of our members of the board. And I just started reading it about a couple days ago, and man, there's some powerful stuff in here. What it's saying is there's two types of leaders. You have a servant leader and you have a self-serving leader. And so the difference is a servant leader is someone who doesn't mind serving others while they're leading. But a self-serving leader is someone who looks for others to serve them while they're in a leadership position. So they kind of abuse their power. But again, having the foundation being Christian-based, a servant leader is what Jesus Christ was. And so that's what I'm going for.
So what book would you recommend to young people who are seeking financial advice?
Okay. Again, I came prepared, so I have a couple books here. The first one is called The Richest Man in Babylon, written by George S. Clayson. And this book, man, it was actually written back in 1926, so it's, an older book, and it was derived from the ancient Babylonians back in the biblical days. And it's just crazy to me to think that the same financial principles from way back then still apply to today. So that would be a book that I recommend. I would also recommend this book here called Personal Finance in Your 20s for Dummies. And it gives really everything that you could think of, from money management, student loans, insurance, credit cards, interest rates. I mean, it gives you the full rundown. So as someone that's young, getting ready to become an adult, I feel like if they read this book here, they'll be set. They'll have all the knowledge that they need to be successful.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your background. Where did you attend college, and what was your major?
So I did my first 3 years of college at Valdosta State University, where I actually pledged Phi Beta Sigma, go Mob. And then I transferred to Georgia State, and I finished up my last 2 years at Georgia State University. And I got my bachelor's degree in finance. So that was where I went to school and what I majored in.
So why finances? What led you down that path?
When I was growing up, math was always my favorite subject. Language arts, social studies, it was cool, but when it came to math, I loved it, all of it. Algebra, geometry, the classes that everybody else kind of dreaded, I looked forward to those math courses. And so when I first got to college, I just started as a business major, but I realized that was a little too general. I needed to kind of make it more specific. And so initially I started off as majoring in accounting, but when I took my first finance course, it seemed like a better fit for me. And they're similar, they have their similarities, but they're also very different at the same time. And so I just remember taking my first finance class, and it was more focused on figuring out, financials in the future. And I guess for me, I like trying to figure stuff out, so it just kind of clicked. And so I just stuck with finance from that point.
So what financial advice would you give your younger self?
What financial advice? So I would give myself the advice of, number one, listen to your parents. When you're a teenager, you feel like, you know it all, and your parents are old, they old school. We do things differently now. But honestly, like this book here that was written in 1926, the principles are still the same. So my parents, I remember they used to tell me to save my money, and, just because I get it, I don't have to spend it. But, I didn't really adhere to their advice. But thinking back, if I would have just listened to them, I would be set now. And then the other thing is, it sounds simple, but taking advantage of scholarships. There's so many scholarships, and there's so many other avenues besides taking out student loans, grants, that you can pay for your college and not have to come out of school and be in debt. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, I was one of those that I didn't really feel like doing any extra work. I'm in college. I don't really feel like writing any extra essays or taking the time out to apply for a scholarship. But that would have taken me a long way. Extra 1,000 here, 2,500 there. I would have been better off if I would have been more proactive about scholarships and grants.
So if I were to ask you, what are some practical, solid, and basic fundamentals for good personal finance practices? What would you share with our viewers?
Actually, what I would share, I'm just going to open up this book here. Again, The Richest Man in Babylon is probably my favorite financial book. And it's not even like numbers driven, it's just principles. And so I'll share them with you all. The first principle says, and again, this is from like ancient Babylonian times, but it says, start thy purse to fattening. And what that means, what they explained in the book, is that you should save 10% of whatever you earn, right? So, you earn $100, you put $10 in your pocket. And if you just continue with that principle every time that you make money, then over time, you'll start to build wealth. Unfortunately, we don't take saving that serious, and we end up spending all of our money and then, wondering, what happened to our finances. And so that's the first principle, is just paying yourself first so that you can start building wealth. The second one is control thy expenditures. And what that means, or what they explained in the book, is that you will always have more desires than your income, right? So if you're making $50K a year, you're fresh out of college, and you're like, man, I'm ready to move out. I want to get this new car. I want to get this new apartment. And, you start making these ill-advised decisions where if you would have just, maybe went back home for a little while and saved up some money, or just made some smarter financial decisions, you'd be better off than just going out there and buying all these things just because, you want them. if you learn to just not always go or to delay gratification, right? So if you stick with that, then you'll be in a good position. The third one is make thy gold multiply. And what they meant there is you got to find investments. So the smartest thing to do is to make your money make money for you. And there's so many different avenues that you could do that. You have stocks, bonds, 401ks that you can invest in that will multiply your money. The fourth one that they have here is guard thy treasures from loss. And really what that means is, going back to the third principle, you have to make sure that you make smart investments. So, for example, if you have a friend of yours that's trying to start a business and he asks you to invest, there's nothing wrong with that. But just make sure you do your research, because you don't want to invest into something and then you lose all your all of your investment. So just be smart about what you invest in so that you can make sure you get a return. The fifth principle here is, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. And what this principle talked about was making sure that you own where you live. It's funny, I sat down with this lady one day, I'm drawing a blank on what her name was, but she told me that when she was like 13, her dad started a savings account for her. And every time she got paid, he made her put 10% of what she earned into her bank account. Terry, do you know that by the time she was 29, she had enough money to purchase a house with cash?
Wow.
If we, instilled those principles into our kids at an early age, there would be no need for a mortgage, because you would have the finances to be able to pay for that. So again, the fifth principle is just making sure that you own where you live. And so you're not paying all these high interests on your mortgage for 15, 30 years. You could just pay it cash and be set. The sixth one is ensure a future income. And that was just talking about making sure that when it's time for you to retire, that you actually can live without having to work. You don't want to be 60, 70 years old and you're working at Walmart, or you're working at, down the street at Kroger, because you weren't smart about your retirement. So make sure that you are proactively investing and making sure that when it's time for you to retire, that you'll be set. And then the last one here, the seventh principle, is to increase thy ability to earn. And what that meant is just making sure that you're always fine-tuning yourself, making sure that you're investing in who you are and what you want to do. So whether you want to, be a CEO in a company, that means, going back to school for your master's, maybe your PhD, different certifications, or if you want to become an entrepreneur, same thing. You want to make sure that you're a subject matter expert in what it is that you do, that you're constantly reading, you're constantly looking for the next certification that you can get, so that, people will, you can build the credentials and people will flock towards you. So again, those are the 7 principles from this book. And I promise you, if you, adhere to these, you'll be all right.
Wow. Man, that sounds like a book that everyone needs to read.
Absolutely.
So do you think that a person has to be an entrepreneur or financially savvy to be financially free? Or can anyone accomplish financial freedom?
No, I don't think that you have to be an entrepreneur to be financially free. Really, it just starts with having a desire. Once you sit down and really feel like, realize, man, I want to be financially free. I don't want to continue to have these, financial shackles where every month I get paid, let's just say you're getting $2,000, and of that $2,000, like $1,700 is expenses, and so you only got $300 to yourself. So once you really sit down and figure out, okay, how can I, become financially free or debt free? That's the first step, is just having a desire. The second thing is just coming up with a plan. Desire is great, but without action, you're not going to get anywhere. So you got to develop a plan. And Dave Ramsey actually is a great, financial guru. And me and my wife are following his, what he calls the debt snowball. And so the principle is that you start with your smallest debt and you pay that off. And then, once you pay that off, it kind of gives you a sense of, relief, like, man, I did that. And, you get excited, and then you move to the next debt and you pay that one off. Then you move to the next debt. And so again, as long as you have a plan to get there, it could be done. And then, of course, the last part is just execution. So you could have the desire and you could have the plan, but if you don't execute, again, you're not going to get there. So you have to be willing to make some sacrifices and just execute.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So the 3 takeaways is the desire, the plan, and the execution.
Yes, sir.
So did you or do you have any financial mentors?
I do. My financial mentor, his name is Jeff Morris, and he's actually I mentioned that I'm the vice president of the National Association of Black Accountants, which we call NABA. and he's the previous past president. And this brother, man, he's real sharp. He has his own CPA firm, and he's doing really well. And so, we kind of clicked once I first met him. He's real down to earth brother, and so whenever I have any questions when it comes to finances, because I'm still learning, I definitely don't claim to know everything. I can go to him, and he's been in the game for a while, so he knows his stuff, and so that's my financial mentor. But I also think it's important to have mentors in different areas of life, a spiritual mentor, a relationship mentor, and even a professional mentor, so that it always helps to be able to have someone that's been there that can share their experiences with you, to help you, to be better off in the long run.
Okay, let's talk about PNF. So what does PNF stand for, and how did you decide on that name?
Okay, so PNF stands for Preparing Now for the Future. And really, I came up with the name, it was just a godsend. I was just kind of praying on it for a few days, and that name just kind of popped into my head. And really, if you think about it, preparing now for the future is what it really explains what my business does. We're preparing youth for their future.
So what is PNF?
It is a support system for young adults as they transition from being an adolescent to adulthood. If you think about it, when you have an 18-year-old or 17-year-old that just recently graduated from high school, they've been under the leadership of their parents. They don't really know what it means to be independent. It's kind of hard to send them off to college and just expect them to know how to be an adult, right? And so with my program, what I want to do is bridge the gap, because there's definitely a gap there that needs to be filled to help them be better prepared for the real world. And so with preparing now for the future, that's what we do. We teach them life skills, personal finances, professional development, and career planning. So with the personal finances, we talk about budgeting, money management, saving, credit cards, student loans, interest rates, things like that you don't necessarily learn about in school. Professional development, so we'll do some mock interviews, interviewing skills, we'll do some resume building, and talk about how to effectively network. And social media, man, that's a big one. You could really mess yourself up if you put inappropriate things on social media. So, with my program, we teach them how to be cognizant about the things that they put out there, because employers are watching what you do on your social media. And then career planning. It's important to have a plan for what you want to do. When you first go to college, you may not necessarily know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, which is, that's fine. You still have time, 4 years before you graduate, but start kind of doing some research. What we do is we research different majors. We research what type of careers you can go into with that major, what the demand is like. If you get a degree in a certain field, what the demand is like in the industry, and also, what type of income you could bring in with that. So I just think it's important to know ahead of time what you're getting yourself into. Not saying that you want to be money hungry or chasing a job just because it's going to pay a certain dollar amount, but you do want to be informed so that you can, make a right decision. And so again, those are the things that we focus on with PNF. I'm really excited about, bringing this to the community. I really think it's needed, and I'm just ready to go ahead and get things started.
Okay, so we talked about what PNF stands for and what PNF is.
Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you to start PNF?
What inspired me to start PNF was I realized that there were a lot of mistakes that I made, in my younger years. And of course, sometimes you have to go through certain experiences and you have to learn things for yourself. But one of my favorite quotes actually says that experience is the substitute teacher for wisdom. And really what that means is that if you don't know any better ahead of time, like nobody's ever taught you, you don't have the wisdom, then unfortunately you have to learn from experience, right? Or certain mistakes. And so that was my case. I learned from experience. But PNF is here to be able to teach through wisdom. And so again, credit cards, man, student loan debt out the roof, not really knowing how to properly conduct myself in a professional manner. So I had to learn all these things kind of on my own along the way. But again, with PNF, that's really what we're here for.
So exactly what kind of services does PNF offer?
With PNF, there are a couple different options or a couple different routes that we can go. So we do seminars at least once a month. So I actually have one coming up on July 22nd, which is going to be at the Hilton Garden Inn off Sugarloaf. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a seminar catered towards both the parents and the students that are getting ready to go to college. And we're just going to give them some nuggets of wisdom, some things that they should know, some things that they should be thinking about before they actually send their kid off to school, which again will prepare them for what's to come. So we have seminars, workshops. So whether it's a school, a church, a boys and girls club, something like that might have some kids that they want me to come in and do a workshop, a financial workshop or a professionalism workshop, I can come in and do that. Or if you're just looking for a public speaker, I can do that as well. Just come in and speak to a crowd about, whatever it is. Again, there's 3 different areas: personal finance, professional development, career planning. I can come in and talk about either one of those topics.
You left a great paying job in corporate America with a Fortune 500 company. What led to that decision?
It was overdue. I worked for the Coca-Cola company as a finance service manager, and I enjoyed my job. It was a good job, good paying benefits. I literally live right down the street. It's not even 2 miles away from where I live, so everything was good. But something was missing. Finance again is what I'm passionate about. But there was a disconnect. I felt like I wasn't making a difference or an impact in the community working for Coca-Cola. And the amount of hours that I was putting in at the company, I felt like I was missing out on the amount of time I could be investing into myself. And so, recently married, I sat down with my wife. I said, listen, babe, I really feel like this is what I need to do. Before we start having kids and have real responsibilities, this is probably the best time for me to make this decision and take this leap of faith. And so that's what I did, man. We prayed about it, and we seek the Lord, and we got confirmation that this was the right thing to do. So here I am.
It was a great step of faith, man. And of course, faith is rewarded. And it sounds like you're more concerned about making a difference than just making a dollar.
Absolutely.
How much of a role does your faith play into your life principles and your business principles?
My faith is the foundation for my business, honestly, and my life in general. So as a Christian, your life should match, what the Word says. And I actually have 2 scriptures here that I want to reference that kind of help me with the businesses or the principles for my business. So Romans 13:7-8 says, "Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another." And that last part to me is really what gets it. Let no debt remain outstanding. You know what I'm saying? If that's what the Bible is telling me, then obviously God doesn't want us to be in debt. And so if I just live by that principle or base my business around that principle, then, I'm serving the kingdom. And the other one that I have here is Luke 16:10, which says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." And so again, that just goes towards your money management. God, everything flows from God. As a Christian, I believe that all things flow from God and that we are just here to be good stewards of our finances. And so if we're, mismanaging our finances, God's not going to reward us with more because we can't manage what we have. But if we can show him that we're responsible with what we currently have, then he'll bless us with more. A parallel or a comparison that I'll use is with loans, right? Creditors, they look at your credit score. Your credit score is a picture of how responsible you are with your money. If you have a bad credit score, the loan company is not going to loan you money because they don't think that you're going to pay them back. You haven't shown that you're responsible. But if you have a good credit score, then they're more willing to lend you the money at a lower interest rate because they know that you're less of a risk. So again, it's the same principle, but we just have a earthly principle and then a spiritual principle.
Wow, those are great scriptures and also great illustration. What is your favorite quote and why?
Okay, my favorite quote is actually unknown. I'm not sure who wrote it, but it says that your presence should make an impact. Otherwise, your absence won't make a difference. And that's deep if you think about it, because we're all here to make a difference on this earth. Like each one of us has different gifts and talents that we should be using to serve the community. And so, if we're just doing the same thing every day, going to a job, and not saying that you can't make a difference at your job, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's more to it. You know what I'm saying? Like God gave all of us different gifts and talents that we could use to glorify Him and to make a difference. And so if you're not making a difference in the community, if something were to happen to you or you were to, fall to the wayside, people wouldn't even realize because you're not making a difference anyway. But if you're out here making a difference and, making a name for yourself, and same thing would happen, you go missing or whatever, people are going to notice, like, man, what happened to that brother Andrew? So again, that's what I live by, is just making sure that my presence makes an impact. And I also want to share my favorite scripture, which is Jeremiah 29:11, which just says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and give you a future. And to me, that is the foundation for who I am. I don't need somebody from a corporate company to tell me, where I stand in the company or what they think I'm capable of doing. Like, my Father blessed me and has destined me for greatness. And the scripture says that, and I believe that.
As you travel speaking, coaching, and hosting workshops, what is the most common personal finance question or situation that you notice?
The most common question that I get, which probably isn't a surprise, is how do I get out of debt? Or what's the quickest way to get out of debt? Pretty much everybody has a debt, whether it's a mortgage. People look at a home as an asset, but technically it's not an asset until you've paid it off because you're still paying on it. So that's a debt. Or if you have a credit card or student loans, whatever, those are all different types of debt. And so that's the most common question I always get is, how do you get debt free? And I'm still myself, working on that. But again, that's where PNF comes into play. We want to try to catch these kids, these young adults, before they get to college, before they get into their professions, and teach them about how to avoid debt, how to be smart with their finances, how to save, how to invest, so that, again, those questions won't have to be asked.
Why do you think so many people struggle with their finances?
I think it's twofold. The first thing is, I just think that we're not taught how to really manage our finances. When we're growing up in school, from elementary, middle, and high school, we learn about math, we learn about algebra, we learn about geometry, and those things are cool, but I haven't used any of that stuff up to this point in my life. Even in my career when I was at Coke, I never, used the Pythagorean, I can't even remember how to say it, that theorem or whatever, all those things that they teach you about. I mean, that's cool, but, how about teaching kids about real life skills? How to manage their finances, what it means to invest, what are interest rates, credit cards, things of that nature. So again, I just think that it's a lack of knowledge. So again, that's where that experience has to come in because they don't have the wisdom. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, going back to this book, is being able to make sacrifices. Spending is normally emotional. Whether it's you had a long day and you're like, man, I deserve a drink, or I deserve to go to the mall and shop because I've been working hard, or or even if you're celebrating, it's like, man, I'm proud of myself. I did this, I did that. I deserve a vacation. I deserve this. But if it's not within your finance, or if it's not within your limit, you got to act your wage. You got to, you can't try to keep up with the Joneses. You can't, every time that you feel like you deserve something, you can't just go and do it. You have to make sure that it's within your limit. If you have a budget, which I would always recommend, make sure you fit it in there. There's nothing wrong with having fun, partying, but just make sure that you plan for it so that, when rent is due, you're not like, oh, how am I gonna pay my rent because I went out to party and I kind of forgot that, I had that coming up. So again, just number one, just the educational piece, and then number two, delayed gratification and making sacrifices.
What is the one thing that you want people to take away from this interview?
Man, I just want people to hear my heart, honestly. This is a passion that I have. Like I mentioned, I left a comfortable job working for a Fortune 500 company, Coca-Cola, that's worldwide. But it wasn't because, I want to make hundreds of millions of dollars. It's because I really want to help these kids, and they deserve it. I truly believe that as we continue to, climb and be successful, that we need to reach down and help those that are coming up behind us. It takes a village, and parents can't do it all by themselves. Teachers can't do it all by themselves, and so there needs to be other avenues to be able to teach these kids and to be able to help them to realize that the decisions that they make now in high school and in college sets the foundation for their future. You know, so if you're being smart, not only with your finances, but just in general, like just making smart decisions, planning for your future, something as simple as setting goals. You know what I'm saying? Like if you set a goal and you say, okay, I want to save X amount of dollars by the end of the year, and then you do it, you feel good about it, and then you make another goal, and you just continue to build on that. But if you kind of just living life day by day, you can't really get that far because you can't really track the progress that you're making. And so again, the takeaway from this video is that, from this interview, is that I just want the public, the community, everyone to know that I'm here to teach your children. I'm here to invest my time, my energy, my wisdom, my mistakes into them, so again, they can be more successful in the future.
Where can people go to find out more about PNF?
They can go to my website, which is www.prepforfuture.org. Everything is on there as far as the services that I offer. I have a calendar that will let them know of the different events that'll be coming up. So if they want to register for the event, they can go onto my website and do that as well. Also, social media, I'm on Facebook. It's just Prep for Future. Preparing Now for the Future, I apologize, on Facebook. And then Instagram, my Instagram is Prep for Future. And then Twitter, same thing, Prep for Future.
And how can people contact you?
Yeah, so they can go to the website. My email address is on there, successcoach@prepforfuture.org. And my telephone number is also on there if they want to contact me via phone. But yeah, that's how they can reach out.
All right. Any final words or advice that you would like to leave with the viewers?
The last thing I'd just like to say is, PNF is here to stay. I'm excited about what God is doing. Really, I'm just a vessel, and I know that He's given this to me to teach these kids to build generational wealth. We were just talking about that, and this is the first generation. Let's teach them what it takes to start investing. The stock market, the stocks and bonds, what it means to trade futures, and things like that. When you say those words, it's foreign, especially to people in our community. And so if we can educate them on that now, then again, they'll be set for the future. So I just want people to know, man, that again, it's a brother that is passionate about what he does. I'm not really in it for the money. I'm in it to change lives. And so, sign your kids up so that they can, learn some of this information and really start making a difference.
Well said. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Vassell. Again, it's been a pleasure.